The phrase "everybody's a critic" has almost quadrupled in aptness given the rise of social media and outlets like YouTube in recent years. Now, anyone from the highest paid newspaper critic to some kid down in Michigan or Iowa, fresh off a media course, can critique just about anything. TV, music, books, comics, clothing, food, architecture, politics, and of course, our subject of choice, film. These are the Chris Stuckmans, the Doug Walkers, the Jeremy Johnsons, the Flick Picks, and the Cool Duders of this website and indeed the internet at large. Not owing deadlines or payrolls to major media corporates, these guys just switch on a camera and talk the new and even old releases. Positive, negative, stars, grades, or even a simple thumbs up. All of this enables them to be, well, relatable and more immediate with their viewership than your standard newspaper or TV critic. Good deal, right? Well, every silver lining must come with a cloud after all. This is where you get into the other side of the pool. Be it the tryhards who copy the "that guy with the glasses" formula down to completely forced media clips and almost identical attire, or those who simply switch on a third-rate webcam they got from some bargain bin and ramble on for 20 minutes in an incoherent and often clumsy manner. These are the people who, bless them for dreaming, just don't cut the critical mustard. This may include symptoms such as overgeneralizations to the point of having nothing to substantiate their claims, rambling on just one minor point like an actor or random scene for 5 minutes that really doesn't make that big of a deal in the end product, or not even having the grace to cut out pauses and guffs in their review because, Movie Maker and iMovie are so hard to use, aren't they? Of course, what are reviews if not a presentation of one's opinion on a topic, and on the particularly volatile and vocal platform of the internet, there will be disagreements and people who go against the consensus. Nothing wrong with that, as it shows independent thought and perhaps a broader palette of taste when it comes to media. But there are tired cop-outs, excuses, and straw men that are constantly being used, making me wonder just why some of these people even honestly bother. What follows should hit all the key issues I have with those sorts of videos and articles, hitting the most repeated and frankly laziest cards out there to use to justify why someone likes a film that hasn't exactly been received with open arms by the critical community or audiences at large. Also, in order to keep things going visually, I'm playing Tarzan and the Green Goddess, an old serial. A, because it's public domain, and B, because given the kind of audience this used to cater to, nowadays is the audience most often caught up in these types of shenanigans and flame wars. So, let's quit jibber-jabbering and just get cracking already. Number 1. Oh, it's just an insert genre movie. Just enjoy it for the one element. Anyone who's been around any channel related to film or is a habitual user of places like IMDb should be all too familiar with this trope. While I most often see this card used by the likes of Bay and Salzburg fans with the whole, "Oh, just enjoy for the action," or "Oh, come on, the movie's so funny," even some high-profile folks have fallen into this trap before, especially with series like Bayformers, Underworld, and Resident Evil that pile on the eye candy in a very thick syrup. While you can certainly have an aspect of a film that is your favorite, using that as the crux of your argument doesn't work for one simple reason. Film is a layered experience made up of multiple components. Everything else should, in some way, assist the other. If you have a big dumb actioner or goofy comedy, the story, tone, music, and performances, among other things, should reflect that. If something is trying to be taken seriously with some kind of end-of-the-world story, and then suddenly you have jokes involving robot balls, obnoxious nerds, and farting animals, clearly something isn't fitting now, is it? And it can utterly wreck your argument. Number 2. It's not trying to win any Oscars/awards. This is what I like to call the "What's Your Point" card. So what if a film isn't trying to be awards bait or even trying to revolutionize cinema? It still doesn't change the end quality of a film. Even if a movie isn't aspiring to be the next great milestone in entertainment and just wants to be an amusing diversion for 2 hours, it still has to work on its own terms, and that's how it should be judged. Godzilla, after all, the original, didn't exactly get much in the way of awards love, and yet it's considered one of the finest monster films ever made, and is probably one of Japan's most famous films, period. By comparison, award winner Steve Zalian's All the King's Men from 2006 had a high-profile cast and crew behind it with the likes of Sean Penn, Anthony Hopkins, Jude Law, and Kate Winslet, and it still ended up being labeled one of the worst films of the year. This also applies to people who say things like, well, not every film needs to be Citizen Kane, or whatever high-profile film they know of that has a major level of respect. It's just a lazy and stale argument. It contributes nothing. It's just one of those things where I'm like, why? What are you trying to tell me? How is this supposed to convince me that this movie that you're defending is somehow better than given credit for? 3. But it's just like the book or other source material. Again, another what's your point card. If I want the book, guess what? I'll read the book. I go to a film to see a film. Books and films are not structured and paced the same way. So even if a film is faithful to its source, it can still make for a clunky, slow, and dry experience. Just look at Da Vinci Code for a prime example, where the screenwriter openly admitted all he did was just copy and paste the book. By comparison, plenty of films have changed or altered a number of elements from their original sources and made into very fine films. Frankly, I could be here listing examples all week, but I'm sure you know the ones: your Harry Potters, your Lord of the Ringses, your Godfathers, your Wizard of Oz's, etc., 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 sign on the dotted line, blah blah blah. Card number 4. Nostalgia. Oh, lovely. Another what's your point scenario. Look, if a film made a big impact on you as a child or you saw it at a certain moment in life, then great for you, more power to you. However, using it as an actual argument when presenting a defense on an open platform like the internet is not a smart move, boyo. No one but you, your friends, and your family cares if you saw it when you were 7 or saw it when you were going through your first breakup. None of this has any bearing on the film itself. Guess what? I saw films like Flubber and 102 Dalmatians as a kid, and I can recall entire sequences from memory alone. Does that magically make them good films? No! No, it doesn't. Bring it up as a little tidbit, just to give your piece some color and spice, and a little bit of personality. But don't think you seeing the movie when you were 7 years old is an indestructible shield from any and all criticism, and somehow makes this movie a forgotten gem. Numero 5. Well, if you like this movie, then you must also like this one, hypocrite. Oh boy, this is just straight up lazy. By this logic, if I like Superman the movie, The Dark Knight, and The Shadow, I therefore should also like Steel, Spawn, and Batman and Robin because they're all superhero films. Or that because I like Lone Ranger, I should also like Wild Wild West, which, if you've followed me for any length of time, you know I most certainly do not. Do you see how fast this line of thought just crashes and burns miserably when put even under a tiny bit of scrutiny and stress? Not a smart move, now is it? Point C. Waving stats in your face. This refers to people who try to use similar reviews, usually from really big name reviewers, or lush, fat box office figures to say, see, these people like it too. Like the aforementioned, this is an absolutely useless argument, as by that logic, if most of the critics didn't like the film, or the film is tanking at the box office, therefore you shouldn't like it either. It's so easy to turn this point around and use it against you yourself, and yet you'd be absolutely shocked how many people try and use this lazy excuse for an argument as if it's some kind of magic fix-it-all. Big fat number 7. Insults. Oh, joyous joy to end all joys. Another lazy tactic used in desperation when you have no more aces up your sleeve. be it average people screaming, "Oh, you're all stupid trolls," and "Oh, critics are just stupid bully jerks who just want everything to be high artsy stuff." Or even the high-profile critics themselves saying, "Well, you just don't get it." It's a stupid, moronic, idiotic, and lame argument that is neither stimulating nor will convince anyone of whatever point you're trying to make. In fact, it makes you look childish and, dare I say, in denial about the film. If you want people to take your defense or counter-review seriously and treat it with the kind of maturity and intelligence you want, make actual points supported by evidence and examples, and be in-depth, not whining like a 3-year-old whose mother won't buy him the new Lego Star Wars set. I know it's tempting, and I know the internet can be a very frustrating and beguiling place, but you have to resist. You'll be thankful later. And as a sort of icing on the cake, numero ocho, well, what have you ever done? Let me ask you this, sonny boy. If they haven't made a movie or written a script or don't know the woes of production, have you? No? You haven't? Well, then your argument is completely and utterly invalid, since frankly you're talking out of, well, the area where the sun don't shine, let's put it mildly. You'd be absolutely shocked how many people try and use this lazy excuse. Much like the aforementioned ones, it's a completely useless argument because good films have had very troubled productions and bad films went smooth as silk. At the end of the day, it's an interesting bit of information to bring in, again as an extra layer of spice and pep, but honestly, when it comes to judging a film, that doesn't really factor in or matter. Furthermore, if you're looking at this from a strictly writing perspective, having all this extra info in can really clunk up the writing and the flow of the piece, and as a result can really bog it down and detract from your point, so as to keep it consistently engaging for your viewer or your reader. It's a tough balancing act, but you have to remember that a lot of this is carefully matching up opinions with evidence, while also sprinkling some extra bits here and there. And well, with that, I'll be closing this one off, boys and girls. Hopefully with these tools you can avoid the classic errors that undermine many a film lover, and even perhaps make a little name for yourself in the process as someone who constructed a competent, if not utterly effective, defense of an otherwise unpopular film. If you're still a little unsure and nervous, and if you want a more direct example of how to apply the proper principles, watch my Defending the Lone Ranger series, either here on YouTube in its edited 2-part form, or up on Vimeo, which is linked down below. This should hopefully serve as a more comprehensive guideline for those who are curious and want to find a way to fine-tune themselves. With that said, thank you for listening, and well, till next time, folks.